Hello, hello. Welcome to Behind the Scenes of AV Rant. I think this thing is going. It says live hangout on air. There you go. Should be all right. It's behind the scenes. Yes, the title says behind the scenes. The description says behind the scenes. This is your warning that it's behind the scenes. So that means audio might drop out because it's just Google Hangouts or video might glitch or whatever. That's how that sometimes goes. And then, yeah, you won't see the pictures that we're talking about in the video thing, but look in the show notes there. So like where it says show more below this video, click there because there's a thing that says pictures shown in this episode, and there's a Flickr album. So if you want to look at pictures that way, they are available to you if you do a little bit of work, even behind the scenes by request that has been added. So there you go. That's all the behind the scenes stuff. You have been adequately warned that this is not the finished video.
When you put those numbers on there, is that for the podcast or for the video?
What numbers?
The numbers. The when the things start and don't start.
Oh, if you can just click on those and it'll take you right to the person's question in the finished video.
In the finished video, so not in the podcast. Okay.
No, they're not in the live feed because I have no idea what time it is.
No, not that. I mean like the audio podcast because.
Oh yeah, well the audio podcast. I mean yeah, you can't click on them, but that's the time it would be if you want to scrub to there in the audio version.
Ish. It won't be exact.
It's pretty darn close.
Yeah, but it's not exact. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, you didn't. I'd always thought it was from the podcast that you were doing that, but you're not. Okay, it's no big deal.
From the podcast?
Yeah, from the audio version only.
Oh no! See, all I do is I take the video times and then I add 7 seconds because the intro that you throw on there is 7 seconds longer than the video intro. So. Yeah, okay. I guess it could be off by a second or two.
There you go.
Jeez.
I'm just asking.
No, I'm not going to wait until the audio version comes out and then do it over.
No, I know. For some reason it was in my head that it was the audio version that you were doing that from, but that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. I take it from the video version. I add 7 seconds to everything. Who knows? Maybe I screw up my math sometimes.
Who knows? Could happen.
It could happen.
All right, let's do this thing.
All right.
I'm dire need of coffee. 3 minutes? 3 minutes. Okay. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. I've pretty much done everything I can do in Smash Ultimate. I found all the spirits. 1,303 spirits I found. Good for me. Hooray. That's it. Done.
Okay. I don't know what any of that means.
I'm never going to finish all of the challenges. They're too hard, and I'm not good enough.
Okay. I still don't know. I thought it was just a PvP game. It has a story as well.
Well, it's got a little World of Light story mode. You go around, do all that. Then you have to go through a whole bunch of other modes to unlock all the rest of it. They used to have trophies of Nintendo characters, but they're like, yeah, that's too much modeling for as much things as we're putting into Ultimate. So now it's just 2-dimensional pictures that they call spirits. But there were 1,303 of them, and I got them all. Hooray.
You can die a happy man now, Rob.
That's apparently.
Sorry the podcast was late this last week. I was very busy on Friday. I had a meeting that went all day, and then afterwards I came home, and instead of doing the podcast, I took a big long nap. I was so tired.
Fair enough.
And then Saturday was a competition, a climbing competition that usually they're like 3-hour blocks, right? But I have 2 boys that wanted to compete, and they're different ages, and they were on different blocks, which means I had to be there from like 6:30 a.m. to about 4 p.m.
All right.
So, and then nap. So basically, I chose nap over the podcast every time. So I'm not going to feel bad about that, but I do feel bad that the podcast didn't come out till Monday. This is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask us by emailing us a question at avrant.com. You can go to www.avrant.com and leave us a comment there, facebook.com/AVRant podcast. It's a good way to get your questions in if for some reason email is beyond you. youtube.com/AVRant. Let's see, contact Rob directly at rob@avrant.com. His Twitter's at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter's at avrant_Tom. Let's talk about our listeners of the week. become the listener of the week, you have to support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is by going to www.avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. There you'll be taken to a PayPal donation site. So we want to thank Travis, Mark, Gary, and Juan for doing that this week. So thank you, Travis, Mark, Gary, and Juan.
Indeed, I'll say it again. Travis, Mark, Gary, and Juan, thank you all very much for your PayPal donations.
And like we talked about last week, and I know this is only a couple, for us, it's a literal day after I posted the podcast, but for you guys, it's hopefully 4 days and not another 7. Our listener James has offered to give a 2-bulb starter kit from the Philips Hue line to one random lucky listener. So Travis, Mark, Gary, and Juan, you guys are all technically qualified. Mark has let us know that he wants to be included in that giveaway.
That's right.
And so if Travis, Gary, or Juan would also like to be included in that giveaway, please just send us an email and we will make sure that you're included in the drawing. So right now we have Mark, you're the winner.
But not officially. We're just
not
saying,
officially.
Unless
as of
things
now.
change, you are definitely the front runner. Being the only one who is officially stated.
Statistically speaking, it's looking real good for you.
That's right. But yes, James wanted to close this thing by March the 11th, which is next Monday, which is like, if you're hearing this on the audio, we better make sure the audio only version gets out actually on Friday this week, because that would be super unfair. But yeah,
I know. That's why I kind of wish we had an extra week to promote it. But
you know what? If you're hearing this, it's like, do it now. Because people often go, oh, okay, yeah, I'll get to that later. It's like, no, just do it right now, and then it's done, and then it's all good, and you intended to do it anyway, and then you're in.
And Travis, Gary, and Juan, all you got to do is send us an email, and they'll say, oh, yeah, sure, I'll take 2 of these weird bulb things. I don't know what they are. So there you go. We also want to thank our 84 patrons over at patreon.com. Patreon is a service where you can sign up for a monthly gift to your content creators of choice, and you can assign as little as $1 or as much as infinity dollars to be given to whoever you want to support. So we have 84 people supporting us right now. We thank you all.
Yeah, that's patreon.com/AVRant Podcast. If you'd like to sign up, you can think of it like a voluntary subscription, because it's automatic monthly donation in the amount that you choose. So thanks very much to our 84 patrons over there.
Yeah. And again, James is doing this giveaway for us, which is really nice. He also said that if we receive $200 or more in donations by March 11th, he'll throw in the Echo Dot as well to be given away. So, Mark, you're the winner.
But don't take that literally.
So far. We haven't gotten $200 worth of donations yet, so we're going to need a couple more people to donate to get there, and we'll see if that happens. You know, if it does, it does. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But we want to thank James for supporting the podcast in this very unique way.
For sure, James. We appreciate it. Thank you.
My coffee has not kicked in yet, and my eyes are like totally blurry still. So this is going to be an interesting podcast. In the news, for a while now, the Sony Professional BVM X300 30-inch OLED mastering monitor has been the most widely used professional display for color grading and mastering HDR content at 1,000 nits. But Sony Semiconductor, the division of Sony that manufactured these particular OLEDs, isn't making them anymore because
reasons.
And it doesn't have any plans to continue with OLED development. Instead, they've announced the BVM HX310, still a 30-inch mastering monitor, it's still at 1,000 nits, but now it's a light modulating cell layer or dual layer LCD display. It uses 2 4K resolution LCD panels. One is black and white only, the other is full color. And Sony claims that this not only delivers black levels and contrast nearly equal to OLED. You know, when you're going for mastering content, nearly equal is certainly good enough.
And you don't get the viewing angles. You got to be bang on axis for this thing to work.
Yeah, because those guys who are mastering content, they're like, whatever. Pretty good black levels is good enough for us. If it crushes a little bit of the blacks, that's fine.
But this is, it's having 2 LCD layers stacked on top of each other. So for each and every pixel, you've got a black and white only thing, which is just modulating the light, and then you have a regular color LCD on top of that. So it's like having local dimming for each and every pixel. So you can think of it that way.
Yeah. That's good enough.
But they're claiming there's an advantage to the thing.
Whatever. Oh, did I not read that yet?
That's right.
But also that allows the entire screen to be 1,000 nits full screen, which was never possible with OLED. So it can be 1,000 nits the entire time. And
The entire thing can be lit up at 1,000 nits to just blind you, because that's what
those
HDR
30
was
inch,
intended for.
those HDR monitors. I mean, but mastering monitors, you're supposed to be. I mean, they're only 30 inches because they're supposed to be like right on top of these things.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's right. It's on a desk. It's right there, like a foot in front of your face.
Yeah. So what you really want is 1,000 nits coming at you from
all of it.
4,000 pixels.
But yeah, there's that, and then carrying on. This is still part of the same story.
All right. Given that Hisense showed a dual layer LCD TV for the consumer market at CES, albeit with a 1080p resolution, black and white layer plus a 4K resolution full color layer on top, perhaps this is one way LCD displays will attempt to remain competitive. So it's like one zone for every 4 pixels, basically.
That's right.
That works out.
Yeah,
works out.
Which is still, I mean, you're talking like 2 million local dimming zones, so that's still way more. So I mean, yeah, it's interesting development, this idea of having 2 layers of LCD. The issue does seem to be, though, that it makes the narrow viewing angles even worse, because now it's having to go through 2 things. So interesting to see that, like, Samsung, they're getting quite a bit of praise for their brand new 2019 models, their QLED models that they've just released, particularly like the Q90 that has now been reviewed by a number of places. That's not dual layer. It's still just a traditional 1 layer of LCD with a quantum dot backlight. So it's a blue LED backlight that is then shining through red and green quantum dots to create the full backlight and then going through an LCD. But they've done some extra tuning to the local dimming on that. The Q90 has about 480 local dimming zones. They've done some extra tuning to that local dimming. They've done some extra tuning to the way the light gets through the backlight path and then the filter that's on top of the screen. And they have, everyone is saying they've increased the width of the viewing angles, not so much the vertical. You can't really stand up or lie down, but the width of the viewing angle, they have definitely increased without it having terrible black levels and losing contrast as you move off axis, and without sacrificing black levels and contrast overall when you are also on axis, the way Sony did last year with its flagship Master Series Z9F. So advancements being made in LCD, that's good to see. I don't mind. I mean, that it's very mature technology. It's very stable. They can manufacture it at a low cost, and they're trying to keep it competitive with all types of new developments. So cool to see.
Yeah, just think of like 5 more years, it'll almost be as good as plasma.
Yeah.
Boy, won't that be a real step forward for the technology? BenQ announced their Cineprime HT3550 projector. It's a 1500 DLP projector that uses the smaller DLP chip that they wiggle 4 times per frame to create 4K resolution. But the new feature is they're claiming this model finally brings 95% of DCI-P3 color instead of being limited to Rec. 709. And as all of the lower cost 4K DLP projectors have been, at least up until now, they've been limited to that Rec. 709. So
that's right.
That's $1,500 for a almost 4K, almost white color.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
No, I mean that's nice to see, because before, if you wanted wide color, you were basically forced into Epsons, like their 4000 or their current what is it now? What's the number now? 4010, 4050? I forget how the numbers went on that thing, but it used to be the 4000 and then whatever the update was to that. And those were a little over $1,500 retail, although it got down to about $1,500 in short order with discounts. But yeah, the DLPs at that price point before couldn't do the full wide color. It's still 95%, not 100%, but that's pretty darn good. It means they must have some kind of new color wheel going on, because it was the color wheel that was limiting them before. And yeah. Happy to see that. If you're a DLP fan, good option.
So in the news, basically everybody's getting a little bit better, but not all the way there.
A little bit better.
Except for Sony, who said, you guys don't really need all that.
Things march on.
You don't really need an OLED. Come on, you whingers. Nobody really has OLEDs at home, so you shouldn't need a master on one.
It's a shame.
Those guys. All right, some comments here. Nathan just wanted to share the laugh he had when he came across a $1,300 anti-vibration platform being sold in Audiogon. It uses 5 pairs of magnets to separate a tempered glass top plate from the surface beneath it using magnetic repulsion. It saying it can float in the item weighing up to 65 pounds. Nathan's favorite part of the listing is the description, in which they claim that this is the only anti-vibration device we have tested that consistently resulted in a 20 to 25% sound quality improvement while just adding one of these, or whatever they are, relax
Relaxa 530 is the name of the thing. Yes.
To our reference system, it was tested under turntables, preamplifiers, amplifiers, and digital components with the same results, regardless of whether the components were tube or solid state. The results was a huge audible improvement.
These are the people selling it,
right?
Making that claim in the description. Yes.
No, of course, because
my favorite part of all of this
person in their right mind would actually think
that if you examine the images, there are posts sticking up from the bottom part to stabilize the upper part, because otherwise
it would just slide off the top.
5 magnets that might, it's magnetic repulsion, so it might come out of alignment and just move away. So they put these posts in to make sure that the tempered glass stays aligned, the magnets stay aligned. How are you damping the post? I mean, I'm sure they are damped, but it's probably like a little...
It looks like, I guess there's a little... It looks like there's a little plastic or rubber grommet around it.
Yeah, it's probably like a little silicone O-ring is what I'm imagining. But how is that effectively different than just having used a silicone O-ring at all points of contact? Because if you're talking about transmitting vibrations, it's like
it's
weakest
magnets,
link
dude.
in the chain.
It's magnets, and it works under solid state and digital.
I know.
Digital components.
Put it under your class AB amplifier, and it's the same as putting it under a turntable. It's 20 to 25% better, because that's how we measure audio.
We do measure
percentage points.
Percentage points, that's right. Now, the only one of the things that they mentioned that could actually make a real audible difference on could be the turntable. But
turntable could be.
That would be it. The rest of it's, doesn't care if it's floating on magnets or not.
Really doesn't. Fun, silly stuff. At least he's laughing. $1,300 if you want to do that. Yeah. You know what also works? Mousepad.
I got a $250 monitor. $300. I don't remember how much those things cost. I still have a box with stuff to send to you. Dang it! You got to give me your address.
I've given you my address multiple times.
I know, but
my address is the thing holding you back.
It's not your fault. It's my fault. I know that. I didn't say it was your fault. I said I got to get your address and write it on the box, or it doesn't do me any good. Moani on Twitter previously asked about using Panasonic's HDR optimizer or converting HDR to SDR for his JVC projector. Rob mentioned how the less expensive Panasonic UB420 player had all the same features as a $500 UB820, but it never came out in North America. So Moani decided to take a risk and import one from Germany. Mm-hmm. Still costs only $250 US all in, so he's happy with the paid price. He had to convert the electrical plug, and it won't play North American Blu-rays or DVDs, but it plays Ultra HD Blu-rays just fine, and he likes the results, so that's good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So for now, it plays Ultra HD Blu-rays just fine, and I never heard anything about encoding.
That's right. Yeah. Happily, Ultra HD Blu-rays are region free. They finally were like, you know what? Go ahead and import an Ultra HD Blu-ray disc from any country, play it on any Ultra HD Blu-ray player, and there's no region coding to worrying about. But not the case for Blu-rays, and not the case for DVDs. Those still have region codes, so importing one from another country, it's not going to play those. Moani's like, I'm fine. I've got other players that do Blu-ray and DVD, and those don't have HDR, so there's no concerns about converting HDR on those formats. So he just needed it for Ultra HD Blu-rays, just for the HDR stuff, and it does that just fine for half the price, even though he imported it from another country. So
very bizarre. I actually recently ordered some. Was sitting around on a Friday drinking a beer, going online looking at climbing shoes. I needed new climbing shoes, and I was like, oh, look at these. These are real cheap. I'll buy these. What is this shipping method? Oh, I don't know. I'll just do it. Boom. And they're my same shoes I've had, so I know they fit. I know what size I want. I know them. Everything is going to be fine. I just have to order them. So I ordered them. I'm like, the next day I woke up and went, did I order climbing shoes yesterday? So I went online and looked at that. They're from Germany. I'm like, oh my God. But the shoes are normally $175 to $185. I got them for like $110 shipped from Germany. I mean, tracking that package was not an easy thing to do, but it did arrive. So I don't understand how that even works. How do I get something from Germany that's, a third cheaper than what I would have paid for it here in the US? It's very bizarre. So
I just, for my dad's birthday coming up, he just wanted a new pair of slippers. I ordered some on Amazon. They were delivered to me from Amazon Canada, shipped like locally, like within town, but they sent the wrong size. So I'm like, okay, whatever, that's fine. Set up the exchange. Well, sent back these ones, that's fine. But the replacements, they're coming from Michigan. Thanks, Amazon. It's like, man, that's the way Amazon is set up.
Yeah, well, yeah, whatever. Derek wanted to confirm that neither the NVIDIA Shield nor the Apple TV 4K will play YouTube videos in HDR, but he wanted to further explain that it's because neither of those devices supports the VP9 Profile 2 codec. The NVIDIA Shield supports VP9, but not the Profile 2, and the Apple 4K TV doesn't support it at all. Normally, VP9 Profile 2 is supported at a hardware level, so the NVIDIA Shield might not ever be able to do it. But apparently, Google is looking into a potential software solution that could be applied to Android TV devices like the Shield. It would tax the processor quite heavily, but the Shield might be up to the task. So it's a wait and see. What is he talking about? What is this?
Well, we were
YouTube
saying,
video,
YouTube HDR. So, I mean, the NVIDIA Shield, great at a lot of things, is the only external device that'll play YouTube videos in 5.1 audio, if they include 5.1 audio. So some of the built-in apps in TVs will do it, but as far as external boxes goes, it's the only box that'll do the audio side in 5.1, but doesn't do HDR because of this VP9 Profile 2 codec. So there you go.
So last couple of weeks, we've been talking about my Xbox One, about how it now does 7.1, whatever multi-channel in. I went back and looked at the settings, and it had been switched to 5.1, I think.
Okay. Uncompressed 5.1.
Uncompressed 5.1. So I switched it back to Atmos. But then it's still not always showing me Atmos.
It's not always Atmos.
Yeah, I don't know really what's going on with that thing. So I kind of think at this point Microsoft's just messing with me personally.
Like, I still haven't even bothered. I didn't even re-up my Xbox Live thing because I'm just
I haven't either.
I am never touching that console at this point. And it's like until I do.
It's not my problem is I had no time to game.
Exactly.
I mean, when am I going to game? I got 3 kids.
Get a Switch.
I gotta get these kids out of my house.
The Switch is the only thing that got me a little bit back into gaming.
I don't need to
like
get back
that
into
Switch.
gaming. I'm fine. Thank you very much. Hey, we'll talk about the end of the podcast, but I've been working on books. So yeah, very exciting. Somebody's ears just pricked up. All right, let's get to the questions here. Michael on Twitter. Michael got his HSU VTF3 Mark V subwoofer a while ago. The VTF stands for variable tuning frequency, which means that you can plug the ports. You have the option to select max extension mode or max output mode. He went for max extension mode, which means it plays lower, not necessarily louder. Since he wanted to experience some crazy 16 hertz bass, I think it would be new and exciting. He looked up which movies have bass that low in a few in his collection. So he played each one of them several times. His reaction was, well, that was kind of neat, I guess. Yeah. Then he went back to his regular viewing habits and left the sub in max extension mode. But recently he decided to try max output mode. According to HSU's own specs, that moves at -2 dB point up to 22 hertz, but should allow for higher overall output. He likes it better, he says. Since his room is quite open to other parts of the house, this max extension mode seems as though it really does deliver more impact and slam sometimes.
Oh, so that should be max output mode.
Okay, that's what.
Yeah, max output mode delivers more impact and slam. Yeah.
I guess compared to the other mode, and it just feels as though the subwoofer isn't working itself as hard, although maybe he's just imagining that. So how important is bass below 20 hertz? In fact, how important is 20 hertz itself? It seems to him that the majority of real-world content rarely, if ever, actually plays that low, but getting a sub that plays down to 20 hertz tends to cost more. And if you want to go below 20 hertz, it seems as you're paying several $100s extra for every 1 hertz lower. Do we think, for the average consumer, it would make more sense to really only focus on a subwoofer with sufficient output for your room size over the majority of the bass frequencies that are being played on a regular basis, rather than worrying about the ultra low stuff and paying quite a bit extra for it? So the question basically is how, we're constantly talking about, subs that play real low, mostly because by definition, a subwoofer has to play. I mean, it is the whole the name. If it doesn't play below 20 hertz, I think you kind of have to call it a woofer. But whatever. Okay, so subwoofer. Should we be more worried about output, for the size of the room over frequencies you can actually hear? Versus going lower? You could do both. I mean, honestly, at this point, you're literally sitting on a subwoofer that can do both of the things. You have a very large room, and when we have a very large room, we are often talking about output and not extension as much, because you're never going to truly pressurize that room anyways. Not in the way that we're talking about for those smaller rooms and really low frequencies. the lower extension, anything below 20 hertz, is not something you can actually hear. And I would
Mhm.
argue that 20 hertz itself, and even a little bit above that, is not something that you hear as much as you feel. You can feel that rumble in your gut. You can feel the couch shaking. You can feel all those things, and that is an experience that people find that they want because it is part of the movie watching experience. It's like saying, do you really need all the shades of blue? Like, no, you don't. But when it's not there, you're going to go, it's not there. It should be a little bluer than that, and it's not quite the right blue. It's a different blue. It's going to bother you. So I think that depending on the situation, like in his situation where we're talking about a room that's quite large, we're very rarely going, you got to get something that plays below 20 hertz. No.
Oh, no.
We're going, well, you got to get something that plays loud. And guess what? It also plays below 20 hertz
Because
because
the ones that can play loud enough for your room size can probably play that low anyway.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Out of the types of brands and models that we recommend. Yeah, I mean, my personal concern for content below 20 hertz is next to nothing. I'm not going to say it's absolutely nothing, but it's darn close to nothing. I personally care exceedingly little about below 20 hertz. Now, I do want a subwoofer that can play linearly down to 20 hertz. I want that because there is content. Yeah, I will. Certainly, if you mostly listen to music, the number of times you'll go below 32 hertz is really, really low. That's not much of a concern.
Yeah, unless you listen to like organ music or something like that.
That's
that
right.
has those
Yeah. But even
crazy
then,
low
I mean, once you get a fundamental that is below 20 hertz, you are not hearing it.
Right.
If you are feeling some tingles, maybe, but mostly it's the harmonic. Mostly it's the harmonic that you're hearing or getting some effect from, and that's still going to be present. And that harmonic is enough for our brain to like kind of go, yeah, well, there must have been a fundamental below that. Like it all works quite well. So I care exceedingly little about getting below 20 hertz. I will say I do care about getting to 20 hertz. But yeah, like let's say you have a much smaller room, right? There are lots of subwoofers under $500 that can play down to like 25 hertz nicely. Right. And they don't fully extend down to 20. But if you're in a small enclosed room, you don't need their output to be super massive, and they're getting down to like 25 hertz. And it's kind of like, in that scenario, how important is it to pay that $500, or in our case, like $1,000, because we want you to get two of them, to get that right down to 20 hertz extension, when for $800 or $600, you might be able to do 25 or 30 hertz.
We haven't been able to do this in a while since HSU stopped selling, but the STF1 or whatever it was called, that was the one
that was the STF2 at the time.
Yeah, that one we often recommended to people in very small rooms that were
going $350, and it was 25 hertz, and I liked that thing.
We would recommend that all the time because if you're on a tight budget and you're just not going to be able to pay for that extra subwoofer, but you're in a small room, that subwoofer was perfectly adequate, and for $350, the price was unbeatable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like we've never done it before.
I think I would fall into that argument of, it's covering the majority of the base. So it's not a case we're going to like, you're wasting your money. It's like, no, the vast majority of the time, it's absolutely getting you what you need. It's missing a half an octave down there. It is, but this is $350 versus like $150 sub. That's really kind of almost a waste of money.
Well, how many times have we had somebody come to us and say, I've got this sub, I want to pair it with this sub.
That's right.
I want to get this other sub. And you're like, and that's when we start saying things about frequencies, how low something goes. Like, I got this PB16, ultra, whatever this, it's a massive box, and it plays down to 16 hertz cleanly, in my 11 by 12 foot room. I can't put another one in here, but can I get this other, REL sub? You're like, you can, but, basically you'll have to worry about matching those frequencies up, and it just doesn't do it. So if you're going to get, in his case, he's already got a sub that's playing down to, it can play lower. I mean, I would probably
it's capable of playing below 20 hertz. I mean, even in its max output mode, it's not as though it's a brick wall. It's still playing Right. It's -2 at 22 hertz.
Which
that doesn't mean it's 0 at 20 hertz, or 0 at 18 hertz. There's still sound coming out. It's just if you were measuring it on a graph, there's more of a roll off in that lower end. So it's more important to get the output, certainly, and definitely. I'm much more concerned about 20 hertz and up. And I will fully admit, if 25 hertz is as low as you can get for the price, that's okay too.
So is he recalling correctly that we've said something along the lines of when you get down close to 20 hertz and lower, there's really no tone or timbre to those sounds? And if that's the case, what's the point of comparing subwoofers in the listening test head to head, as many reviewers tend to do? I don't know that that's necessarily true, but we'll go on. A lot of those reviews talk about one sub sounding better than the other. So what would account for that if the extension and output levels are very similar? Transient response, how clean the subwoofers are, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, so I'm not going to say that, yeah, as you get close to 20 hertz, I mean, basically, sound becomes omnidirectional around 80 hertz. So there's really timbre matching at that point is pointless. There's nothing to timbre match at that point. So I would not worry. And we've said this many times before. You can mix and match subs all you want. It doesn't matter.
I mean, as long as there are other metrics going on, including like the transient response. There are subs where they don't stop moving when the signal stops says to stop.
Well, there's
moving,
that, and not only
overhang.
that, there's as far as linearity of the sub as well. You know, so some subs are not going to play, you know, like this, you know, a flat frequency response from 80 hertz down to whatever their low point is. You know, they're going to have differences, and those differences can maybe account for some of these head-to-head listening tests. But I think that's more, you know, how it interacts with that reviewer's room. You know,
that's
you get
big part. I mean, especially if you are trying to do a head-to-head comparison, they can't be like literally superimposed on one another.
No, they can
and if
be
you're taking the time to move one out of the way and move the other one into that exact same position, that's too much delay for you to, you know, your audio memory to actually be reliable as far as a human measurement device. But I mean, there can be real and measurable differences in transient response, in distortion. Like when you get into really low frequencies, it takes a lot of distortion for us to notice, but you can exceed that threshold. It's entirely possible to do so, at which point, the cleanliness of the sound or the delineation of individual bass notes, those things can be better or worse on a given subwoofer. And if one is linear and the other is not, you might be able to hear that as well. That's going to be a perceptual difference because some frequencies are just louder than they ought to be or quieter than they ought to be. And if you're listening head to head, you might hear that. So there can be differences between subs. But if they were all similarly linear, similar output level, similar extension, similar transient response, and similar distortion, then talking about minute differences in the timbre of something below 80 hertz, no. No.
And I'm going to be honest with you. In most of the subs we're talking about, those things are all the case. Most of the subs that we recommend on this podcast,
that's right.
You know, HSU, SVS, Power Sound Audio, Rhythmic, all those guys. Those differences in the frequency response, all these other things that we're talking about are minute enough for us to think it's really not. It's measurable, but not important. You know, it's not important enough that you would say. Now you take some, I DIY'd this thing. I'm like, okay, maybe we need to take a
possibly, but I mean, this is quite a modern thing. You know, in modern times, we're seeing all these really good subs that can all play really low and really loud with really low distortion and rock solid transient control because we've got these hugely powerful amplifiers for relatively low prices. But that's a pretty modern thing. That really wasn't always the case.
And in some cases, it's not the case today as well, especially when you get to these really low price subwoofers or
really expensive ones.
Or I was going to say, the ones where you're like, it comes with the, or it's being sold by a ultra high end dealer. That's got this beautiful cabinet and a 60-watt amplifier. You're like,
yes. Sometimes they still aren't the best at making subs.
What?
Some of these speaker
60-watt amplifier? How big's the driver? 18 inches. Okay. Good luck with that. So you asked lastly, what is the point of measuring subwoofers? Are some not linear in the response? Is it just to see how low and loud they can play? It's both. You know what I mean? It's both. It's the reason to measure subs is to verify the claims of the manufacturers.
That's right.
Manufacturers say I can play this low, this loud, and you measure the sub to make sure that it plays this low, this loud, and to take a look at its frequency response to make sure there's nothing weird going on.
Yeah, and even though something like those CEA 2010 measurements have helped to simplify and make it easier to compare because this is a standardized method of measurement, so at least you can get sort of an apples to apples comparison, but there is a distortion specification as part of that, saying that once you reach that threshold of distortion, which is for the most part set around 10%, which like I say is really high, but we're bad at hearing distortion distortion and deep bass, that's where you have to cut that number off. So it's possible that a subwoofer under CEA 2010 measurements might actually be able to play even louder or even lower, but it can't do so within the distortion threshold. So, those are things to consider as well. And you can see all of that in measurements, and it can help to explain of like, well, I got this sub to play even louder than this other sub, even though according to the measurements, it said, sub B should be louder than sub A, but it might have been because of the distortion figure.
Mm-hmm. All right, Infinite Gary. Gary has several different disc players around this house. A couple of them have started to break down with frequent skipping or pauses, but one of his oldest disc players, a Sony DVD player from 1999, is still going strong. What causes disc players to break down over time, and why is it that a particular disc might have more trouble? Disc player might have more trouble playing.
No, like a particular disc. You've taken an individual disc.
In more than one player, okay. Might have trouble playing in more than one player, but one player out of his collection might be able to play that disc with no issues. Okay.
So it's like you got a problem disc, you tried in a bunch of players, it doesn't play, but then one of your players, somehow that same disc magically plays. What causes that type of thing?
Well, okay, as far as breakdowns concerned, and there's sort of this false equivalency that I think happens a lot of times when people are like, they don't build them like they used to.
Yeah.
You're like, listen, okay, buddy. What you're forgetting is that you went through 5 or 6 different ones of these before you got this one that happened to last until now, right? You're forgetting about all those other things. And yes, okay, so it is a Maytag, Maytag, and I had this kind of conversation with because when our washer broke down, he's like, I don't buy anything that's not a Maytag, American-made Maytag. I'm like, okay. The reality is lots of things can cause breakdowns. Lots of things, including as little things as dust. Especially in a disc player where it's a laser.
Yep.
I mean, when was the last time you cleaned them? When was the last time you took it? Because I mean, there's those discs that you put in there that basically have little brushes, and all they do is they basically clean off the lens. When was the last time you did that? Is it a particularly dusty area where dust can fall inside and cause, or hair or different things can go in there and cause shorts or whatever. I mean, lots of things can cause these things. So why is this one Sony player still going strong? Because you buy enough of these things, and one of them's gonna pass the test of time.
But I mean, disc players are like mechanically, physically moving things, right? The disc is spinning, so you got a little electric motor in there that can go out on sometimes, or it can get where the speed isn't exactly what it should be. We're talking about like 405 nanometers. Right? If you're off by 405 nanometers, that laser is no longer reading the disc correctly. That's pretty precise movement you got to have going on there in order for the disc to not have any problems reading. Why could one player perhaps play a disc while others can't? Often that's to do with how much buffer there is.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I remember like I had CDs that would play in my car but wouldn't play in other places, because the car always had this huge buffer in the CD because they know that there's going to be jolts and stuff and the thing's going to get knocked around. So they wanted to make sure they had plenty of time before to reread something if they needed to reread it. And so this disc would play in the car just fine, but you take it inside the house, and because it had been bumped around so much in the car, it would skip like crazy inside. Right. And that's because the inside players are like, oh, we don't need a buffer.
Yeah.
How about a half a second? Is that enough buffer for you?
Yeah, I mean, if it fails to read, it attempts to reread, and if the number of times that it attempts to reread exceeds how long your buffer is, then you'll get a skip or you'll get a pause or something like that. So yeah, that's usually to do with the buffer. I mean, it can also be to do with how precisely the laser has been aligned. I mean, you have to remember, not only is the disc spinning, but the little laser itself moves forward and back on a little track that is also mechanized. So those are usually the things that breaks down. It's not usually like a capacitor or the laser itself, although I mean that can go, of course, but it's typically the mechanicals. It's the physically moving parts, but like great example, my parents' LG Ultra HD Blu-ray player, which I never recommend, tinker toy quality on the build thing, but it's hilarious when you play an Ultra HD Blu-ray because those have to spin faster as you're getting towards the middle of the disc, because it's reading at a constant bit rate. But of course, with each revolution of the disc, you're reading less data as you move towards the middle, and the track is shorter. So by the time you get to the end of an Ultra HD Blu-ray, that thing is going, it's like screaming because it's trying to spin the disc so fast. It doesn't have the quality to do it. And that thing's going to die in short order.
All right, Nick. Nick says, crystal ball time. Do we expect that micro LED displays will actually be something consumers can buy in both current flat panel sizes, 65 and 75 inch, and projection screen type sizes, 100 to 150 inches? Do I read the rest of this as well?
Oh, well, we can answer that first.
Yeah. Micro LED displays.
Micro LEDs. That's like what Samsung has been showing off at CES. They call it the wall. And they showed a 75-inch prototype.
Right.
So clearly it's possible. It is a thing that could be manufactured.
Right.
Down to 65. I don't know. Maybe, sure. Why not miniaturize it a little bit more and get from 75 down to 65? That seems like a plausible thing that could happen. We know they can make these huge sizes.
Right.
So
that
that's for sure.
Very far away from. Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, there's lots of uses for this, and we might see this technology being embedded in other things too.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not take the form that we're currently seeing it in, but I see this technology as having a lot of it could be used as backlights. It could be used as a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could be happening here. So
yeah, I mean, Samsung might have been the most visible with it, but all the other companies are working on this. Sony has been working on their crystal LED for a long time. LG showed off a prototype behind closed doors. They're like, yeah, we're doing micro LED too. We're just not hyping it up because we already have OLEDs on the market. And, the Samsung thing isn't going to be a consumer model for several years yet, just like ours, but they don't have OLED. So they're trying to make it seem as though, oh, this is coming tomorrow. And it really isn't. Some of the Chinese companies also had micro LEDs. So everybody's working on this. It does seem like it's probably going to be the next big thing in display technology because every part of it makes sense, right? Every individual subpixel emits its own light, so you get those perfect black levels and perfect contrast, but because there's no organic compounds in it, it doesn't break down over time, it doesn't burn in, it can be driven even harder to get even brighter than OLED. So yeah, it all adds up. It's just you have to miniaturize it and get the price down.
I would love to have a direct view TV on this wall behind me. I would 100% love that. I mean, if you could roll out, if you could sell it as a screen, you know what I mean, and then so that you're not physically having to, you could actually just glue it to your wall or whatever. I mean, that would be fantastic. All right, so he says, if you consider the 98 or 100-inch LCD TV models that have been available from Samsung and Sony, they cost between 35 and 60 grand. And there was the Vizio 120-inch reference series TV that cost $1,000 per diagonal inch. It was $120,000.
It was.
So if 100-inch plus micro LED displays are made for consumers, do we expect similarly high price points, or do we think they might hit the lower price points thanks to the modular design that's been shown with Samsung's The Wall? We really have no idea of knowing how this will roll out, but this seems like a cheaper thing.
Yeah, it seems plausible that if you're so I think what would have to happen for this scenario to exist, right? You can create some screen size larger than 100 inches. You're getting these individual modules that you then stitch together to create that size. I think if we get away from the strict resolution count, then this could definitely happen, because if we're no longer it has to be exactly 3840 by 2160 or nothing else, well, that's a problem, because then you have to create modules that add up to exactly that pixel count for whatever given screen size you want. That's a problem. But if we're willing to accept that there's going to be scaling going on because we have so many pixels that we just don't really care anymore, and now maybe you have a little bit less than 2160p, maybe you have a little bit more, but that's the size you wanted and we're willing to accept that scaling, I could see it getting to certainly below 60,000. Like right now, the 146-inch one or whatever that they had, they're selling that commercially for between $300,000 and $400,000. But, super low yields on those, only being sold commercially. It is this modular design. It is exactly 3840 by 2160. And that's the sort of price point. So could that get down if they mass produce these panels? Yeah, I think so. I think it has a better shot than a 100-inch LCD, which is always going to be a super minimal run of, platters.
And what Rob's saying, I think, is absolutely on point. What we have to stop thinking about is resolution.
Yeah,
we are at the point now where the pixels are so dense that who cares?
Yeah.
It's
like your phone.
Even at 4K, we're not even talking about 8K. Even at 4K, to get up so close that you care about the resolution, you can't see the whole picture anyways.
Yeah.
So you need to back up so you can see the whole picture. The only time I really worry about resolution is VR.
Sure.
Because those screens are an inch from your eyes.
Yeah.
So then, yes, that's when I care about resolution. But if we can do what Rob's saying, which is basically, if you get this micro LED panel and it is this size, this is the resolution you will have. But if you get it this size, you will have this. These are the number of pixels you'll have.
Because
they're just more pixels.
Mass producing these modules, and every single one of those modules is the same.
Right.
But then the number of modules that you choose to stitch together to make whatever screen size you want, it's going to vary.
So it ends up being
resolution.
a 2-part solution. It is it is the screen itself plus a box, which is the scaler, essentially.
Yeah.
And the box talks to the screen. The screen says, "This is how big I am."
Yeah.
The screen says, the box says, "Okay," and then you plug that in, and that is basically your display.
Yeah. But I could see them getting to the point where they're pumping out these modules, because every single one of the modules is identical. So once you can mass produce those and pump them out quickly, I could see the price coming down significantly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, the problem with the 100-inch and the 120-inch and all these other things is not that it's not that it's that hard to make one of those. It's that it's not cost effective.
Yeah.
To make a bunch of them.
Yeah.
You're not going to sell if they thought they were going to sell thousands upon thousands of 120-inch LCDs. That price would come down.
Sure.
And they would make thousands of them. They would make a factory that made nothing but them, and then they would have a reason. That's how your price comes down. But they don't. They make one. They make 10. They make 100 out of that has to be basically handmade. So it's a custom. Think about that. It's a custom thing. Whereas if we can do what we're talking about here, which is this modular design, which basically means that you can mass produce it because it is what it is. And all you're doing is adding more of them.
Yeah,
that price should come down.
It's like making bezel-less tablets that you can stitch together. It's like, we're already pumping out tablets, and the prices on those can come down. So I could see this definitely being a thing in the future. Yeah.
All right, Rob W on Facebook. Rob has a theater downstairs and a living room upstairs. In his theater, he upgraded his previous 65-inch Samsung TV to a 75-inch Vizio P series, but the Vizio had very noticeable uneven backlighting with vertical bars and the dirty screen effect that was very distracting to him, since he likes to watch hockey. He thought it might have just been that particular TV set, so he replaced it 5 times. Every single 75-inch Vizio had the same sort of problem, but now that he has seen a 75-inch versus his old 65-inch, he couldn't stand going back down in size, so he wound up buying a 75-inch Samsung Q6F when it went on sale, and he's been quite happy with that TV.
All right.
So naturally, he's thinking about upgrading it.
Yep, I got something I like. What can I replace it with?
He could move his 75-inch Samsung to his living room, clearing the way for a 110-inch acoustically transparent screen with the Epson 4000 projector. His maximum budget would be $2,500. I guess that's option 1. Are we going to still go with this? Or are we going to answer this?
Yeah, we're going to keep going because that's not his question yet.
Oh, that's not even the question. So it sounds like a question, but whatever. Let's say that's option 1. On the audio side, he says he has low standards, not so low that he would consider a home theater in a box, though a good one might be as good or better than what he has right now, but low enough that an audio upgrade just doesn't get him excited the way a bigger screen does. He's choosing the Harman Kardon AVR 220 from 2002, old enough that it doesn't even have component video switching, let alone HDMI. So it's strictly Dolby Digital 5.1 and DTS 5.1 via optical or coax for him. He's got that receiver connected to a Cambridge Soundworks speakers, 4 of their Ensemble 3 satellite speakers, a larger center speaker, and their 8-inch sub. Don't call it a sub because it ain't. He's happy with the experience this setup provides, even though he rarely gets to play the system at a respectable volume level, because it probably can't, since he mostly keeps the volume low. And that's another reason spending money on the audio side is less exciting to him. Nevertheless, option 2 is he could take his $2,500 budget and put it towards audio rather than video, but he cannot do both. So he asks, I remember getting this question on Facebook, and I was like, ugh. Would having new, perfectly matched speakers all around be a huge, worthwhile upgrade? In his mind, he was actually thinking his current center speaker, which is larger than the satellites, might be the problem, and that smaller, perfectly matching center might sound better. What is our opinion on that? My opinion is you are wrong. That's not the problem. Well, unless that speaker's broken in some way, I guess.
Yeah, it's this notion of if all the speakers are literally identical, that will somehow sound better. But no, definitely I wouldn't go that direction. I wouldn't
No.
be like, I've got these 4 teeny tiny little speakers, and then I've got a larger center speaker, and they don't all sound identical. So what I should do is downgrade my center to be identical to the other 4 teeny tiny ones, and then it'll sound better. It's like, no, they're just all going to sound like those 4 teeny tiny ones. And so I haven't heard those Cambridge Ensemble 3 satellites in person, but went through some reviews, and the pretty large consensus of like, yeah, these, like, they don't have any bass, which you wouldn't expect from a satellite. That's fine, but also don't have very good treble extension either. They're basically like Bose cubes, right?
Yeah.
They play the mid range, and that's about it. Your center, meanwhile, from the Center Stage series, is pretty respectable. You know, Cambridge is a perfectly respectable brand, and they make some decent speakers. The little teeny tiny ones you got, if anything, are what are holding you back. So your problem, in quotes, would not be your center. It would be the little teeny tiny satellites. If anything, you would want to up those to be closer to matching your existing center.
I wonder what the problem is. I mean, he says,
well, he's just like, if you were looking for an upgrade, would just replacing the center with a smaller center be a worthwhile upgrade? It's like, no, definitely
in the history of me, I've never once said that you should replace your center with a smaller center. I've often said you should go bigger, but I've never said you should go smaller.
And yet you're very willing to say, you know, instead of getting towers, get bookshelf front right speakers. So, you know, a little bit of that might have crept into that thinking.
So what do we think will make him happier, going from a 75-inch flat panel to a 110-inch projection setup, or replacing his receiver, speakers, and sub? Well, honestly, dude, I do not get. I do not get you. And I mean no disrespect here. I want you to understand that I am in no way insulting or looking down upon you. I am looking at you as a person looks on, you know, a person from another culture that's doing something very bizarre. I do not understand where you are coming from. Like, for me, the picture is important, but the audio is as important, and to me, it's a little bit more important. I want to be able to see everything. It's very important to me, but I've never had many of the issues that a lot of people do with like screen door effect and rainbow effect. I've never seen any of those things in any form, and it's not. Maybe that I'm not noticing it, but you know, it doesn't bother me that much. I have a very easy time losing myself in what I'm watching, and then I don't pay attention as much to the image quality as I do the story and stuff that's going on, and that the audio really helps with that. So I want to say that the speakers would make me a lot happier, than upgrading my picture from a 70. First of all, we don't know how far away you're sitting and all that, so there's that going on. But if you went from 65 to 75 and you really like it, well then, for me, I'm like, you already spent a bunch of money on TV. It's now time to spend on this other thing. But my concern here for your image quality, for upgrading your image, is that you're going to go from a direct view 75-inch screen to a 110-inch projection setup. Yeah. Now, it's in a basement, so I assume you have light control, but there is a very real difference in you know, I notice it when I go to my parents and I watch their plasma, and I come home and I watch my projection screen. My projector looks great, but that plasma has it's just that direct view experience is different.
Yeah, you're also going from a Q6F, which, even though it's an edge-lit LCD display, it's like one of the best as far as edge-lit goes. The LCD panel itself has good high contrast, probably the best that's out there as far as that goes. Really excellent anti-reflective coating, and when you want to do HDR, yeah, it's giving you the full 1000 nits or more. The projector that you're looking at, you know, the Home Cinema 4000 from Epson, it's compatible with HDR, but HDR isn't going to look anything like what it looks like on your Q6F. Yeah. It's going to be a very different experience. Going to be bigger, but going to be very different. The other side that kind of amuses me is he's willing to go with an acoustically transparent screen, which is like, when you don't care about audio, why would you do that?
I know.
So that one, I'm just bemused by that. But so this is tough because the speakers that you have, and again, I haven't heard them in person, but I more or less trust the multiple opinions that all said a very similar thing, because it's entirely believable to me that it is the case, that you kind of have speakers that are probably akin to like a Bose Cube speaker system. That's kind of the size they are. In fact, you paid less than what you would have paid for Bose, so you made out good that way. But it's kind of that level of sound quality. And if it were me, I fall into a very similar camp as Tom, where I care probably more about the audio than I do about the video, although I very much still care about the video as well. I'm like, from that, you could get such a nice and worthwhile upgrade without spending crazy amounts of money.
I know we could do this. We could do this for $1,000. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm good. Like if you got RBH Impression Series speakers, right? Not even the Impression Elite, the regular Impression
ones,
Series speakers. You get those, and I mean, you don't have to go Atmos. You can get a 5.1 or an X1400 or something, right? You know, that's a 7.1 receiver, but you're talking like $250 for the receiver there. And then what do? Maybe we go like an RSL Speedwoofer 10 or something, right? Because he probably doesn't want a huge, physically huge sub.
Right.
But, something like that would be a big upgrade over your current sub while not breaking the bank and not getting too physically huge. And it's like all of that easily within your $2,500 budget. In fact, well below it, probably.
Below it, yeah.
And it's like, that's a real nice upgrade. It's definitely not nothing. But if he really doesn't care, man,
I still wouldn't go.
Torn.
I still don't think that he's going to be happy. First of all, don't spend the money on an acoustically transparent screen. You got the world's smallest speakers to begin
with.
Just
put it below the screen
or on the outside of the screen or whatever. It just
unless I don't know. Maybe he was thinking he'll have a flat panel and a screen that comes down in front of it or something. But even so, you just put the center speaker low enough that it's below the screen when it comes down.
Right.
Yeah.
I still would. I would be hesitant to have you spend all this money on a projection setup.
No.
And then I prefer the direct view. Yeah.
Man, I almost want him to like get all the audio stuff we just recommended and like return it if it doesn't satisfy, because you can, right? You can return all the stuff. You might be out a little bit of shipping on the speakers, but that's about it. But I almost want him to do it just to get that difference and be like, is this actually, because we can't answer what will make you happier.
I know. What do we? Yeah.
But it's like the screen upgrade size, obviously that's not a question. It's much bigger, but you are actually downgrading in some ways with that video upgrade. So
you're getting
tough
bigger
answer.
picture, but there's going to be some drawbacks to that.
It's a few little drawbacks too, yeah.
So
and you got a real nice TV. So I'm like, I think it's time to do the audio. Yeah, I don't think you've done it in a while. I think it's time.
Yeah, and there's a potential option 3 is that he could do his projection setup upgrade. Then as funds become available, he could slowly upgrade the audio a piece at a time. If he did that, which you replace first, what would give him the biggest improvements? Don't do that. How about that? Just don't do that. I really don't think that. First of all, that's code for I'm gonna do that's just the same as option 1.
Right. Well, yeah, it is because it's spending the $2,500 right now on the video upgrade, and then the audio may or may not come later.
Yeah, you're never doing the audio. So, I mean, in this case, I don't see that there's any piece of it that you should do first if you're going to do the audio. I mean, I would.
I mean, it'd be the front 3 speakers, right?
You have to do like at least those together.
You have to do the front 3 speakers together. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the receiver, and then the sub, and then the surrounds. I guess that would be the order I would do them in.
That sounds good. That sounds reasonable.
But don't do that. I like Rob's suggestion, which is buy all that speaker stuff now.
Yeah, go try it out. Go get a Denon X1400. Go get some RBH Impression Series speakers. Get an RSL Speedwoofer 10S. You put that all together. You have a good listen to it. Maybe it'll make you go, "Oh, you know what? I do appreciate audio more than I thought I did."
Now that I can actually hear things.
Yeah.
All right, Jordan. First up, Jordan, I want to thank us for some previous recommendations. You got a Pioneer Andrew Jones and Full Cow Little Bird speakers along with a Yamaha receiver based on our suggestions, and he's been happy with those. And he just got a pair of SVS PB1000 subs, which I'm sure he's also happy with. His room is small and oddly shaped. It also has very few placement options. He's got one in front corner available, so he put a sub there, and the second sub behind his seat, which basically puts it in the middle of his back wall. The diagonally opposite corner is his closet. And he could put the sub inside the closet, but having the closet door open or completely removed would make his room even less of a rectangle. So what bearing would that have on the performance? Would putting the second sub in the closet be worthwhile? If the closet door is not removed completely, will that obstruct the sound waves in in any way? Well, no. I mean, you're keeping it open.
If the door were actually closed, then
I know,
yes,
yeah. The door was closed, then yes.
But as long as the door is swung open,
yeah,
then
I would
no.
not worry about it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about a lot of boundary reinforcements that's going to wreak havoc with the frequency response of the sub. Basically, it's going to create some weird interactions because you've got it inside of a room that's going to come out of that room into your room. Basically, reflecting all over the place. Try it. I guess is my gut reaction is I put it back there, see what happens. Run Odyssey. Does he have run YPow?
Yeah. But I mean, thankfully, he's got PB1000s, which have fully variable phase knobs. So since he has that, I have very little objection to his current placement. Yeah. Because I mean, at least you haven't done the thing where they're both on the same side of the room. You've got them somewhat across the room from each other. One's in a front corner, and then the other one's basically in the middle of the back wall. But your room isn't a rectangle anyway. So given that you have fully variable phase knobs available to you, that's the thing I would be adjusting. You do it a little at a time, ideally 3 degrees at a time, although man, is that tedious. So try 6 degrees at a time if you don't want to take that amount of time to try it. But you just have a bass sweep playing on repeat over and over and over, and you listen to that bass sweep in all of your seats over and over and over. Go and change the phase knob. You do the phase knob change on the sub that is physically closer to you, which is almost certainly the one that's behind your seat. So yeah, you change that a few degrees at a time. You listen in all your seats, and once you hit uniformity, you go, bingo, I am done as far as changing my phase knobs. Now I run YPow and get my linearity now that it is uniform in all my seats. I'd probably go with that. I'm not a huge fan of taking the door off the closet and sticking your sub in there, and it might not pan out anyway.
Yeah. You can still try it.
You can try it. You've got all the stuff. It's free, just time.
Carl, Sound Division has been posting some editorials about the current state and future of physical media, including the one titled "Is this the video disc apocalypse?" That's hard to say. They respond to their own headline with, "No, discs are so profitable, and studios have not shown any signs of halting disc production. But with Oppo and Samsung and seemingly LG too leaving the disc player market, and retail stores decreasing the amount of space dedicated to disc." Shelf? Yeah, self.
I forgot an H.
Yeah, you see that there. Adding it now does not help. I can see you doing it.
Of course you can. I know
the downward trend does seem clear. And of course, streaming services only appear to be growing. The author of the article says that right now, discs still offer superior audio and video quality, and that as a reviewer, he still can't rely on streaming services when evaluating equipment. But he also mentions that streaming quality is not as bad as he had feared. Thanks, dude. And does seem good enough for the vast majority of consumers. Oh, the huddled masses, they can have their streams, but you can pry my discs from my cold, dead hands.
Pretty much.
More people than just this author making a plea to readers to buy more discs and to make sure they are buying brand new discs that will count towards studios' bottom line so they can remain profitable enough portion of the market. Profitable enough portion of the market to continue existing. That comparison to vinyl LPs is hinted since streaming music has clearly taken over for the most part, but vinyl has made a comeback because it is profitable enough to cater to that market. Whatever. Do we foresee movies on physical disc becoming the same sort of niche? A Sound Division reader poll indicates 75% majority still want physical discs, but of course that's a poll of Sound Division readers. So they were talking. They were talking about an
echo
vinyl.
Chamber closed group going on there. Yeah.
I mean, first of all, it is ludicrous to suggest that I need to go buy physical discs in order to make sure that these companies keep selling discs. I think that if it's going to be a niche, it's going to be a niche. That's just what's going to happen. And going and telling people on Sound Division to go buy discs is stupid. I do, and I've said it on this podcast before, I have gone to the movies specifically because I wanted to support the type of movie that was being made. I've bought discs because I wanted to support that type of movie that was being made. That's my choice. I have chosen to do that. I don't know that it makes that much difference, but it doesn't make no difference. Do I think that discs will go away someday? 100%. I do.
Someday, yeah.
Do I think it's going to happen soon? I do not. I think we will have discs for the next 10 years. We'll see. Yeah.
It's going to be a while. In fact, DVD will probably outlast Ultra HD Blu-ray, because they're so cheap and they're still out there, and there's still stuff released on DVD that isn't released on even Blu-ray, let alone Ultra HD Blu-ray. Right. So yeah, those will probably be around for ages and ages. I mean, as far as what I want, I just want downloads. That's what I want. I mean, Kaleidoscape. What I want is Kaleidoscape, just not with that price.
Right. Well,
although Kaleidoscape has made a lot of efforts to bring their price point down, so good on them. But I mean, that's what I want. Is I want the disc quality in something I can download, because I don't need the physical thing. I just need the quality, but I don't necessarily want to be limited to only streaming, because then you run into the situation where streaming service goes away and whoops, all your movies just disappeared. Because
and that's
you know,
that.
And this has happened more than once.
Not only that, but I want basically a subscription service where I get, like Kaleidoscape, where I get access to movies, but I'm just paying the monthly subscription service, whatever that might be. It's like, because what irritates me more than anything is watching something on Netflix and then 6 months later going, I haven't seen that movie in a while, I want to see it again, and I can't find it.
It's not there. Yeah,
it's not there
left
anymore.
their catalog. Yeah.
And that drives me absolutely bonkers. I would love to watch Cabin in the Woods again. I haven't seen it in a while, and it's a great movie, but I can't find it anywhere to stream. At least I haven't the last time I looked. My wife wanted to watch Seven Samurais the other day. I was like, you want to watch a Kurosawa film? We are watching a Kurosawa film. Can't stream it. Can't stream it anywhere that I could find. Not without, paying for a rental from Amazon, which,
I mean,
hey, Amazon, I have done your streaming before. It sucks. So
until Ultra HD Blu-ray, iTunes actually came really close.
Yeah.
Because you could download the 1080p movies, and you could purchase them or you could rent them. So, I mean, like, there's no real technical reason why they couldn't one day start doing that with 4K Ultra HD. There's no technical reason why they couldn't start offering lossless audio or higher bitrate Dolby Digital Plus, as opposed to the highly compressed Dolby Digital Plus that they're doing right now. There's no reason they can't. I mean, they already do include Dolby Vision and HDR in that. So technically, there's no reason why it has to be a physical thing I can hold. I don't need that, but I just would like it to be the high quality, which is entirely technically possible, and I would like it to be something that I could download so that doesn't just disappear.
Right. Yeah. But
what will it be, though? What do we think it will be?
Oh, I don't know.
Direction. I don't like the direction we're heading, where every studio has their own individual streaming service.
Oh, I know. This whole CBS or whatever
and Disney. I mean, Disney. Disney is going to be like, here is the only place you can now watch our home release movies, and every couple of years we throw it back in the vault. That's what they're going to do, and they're never going to let you download it. And if they do release it on disc, it's going to be the ruined version that they're already putting out there. Right. It's like iTunes. iTunes is going to be our savior. Ugh.
Please let us have a better savior than that.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. I don't like the direction that we're going. I want to watch Doom Patrol. I am not signing up for CBS All Access.
But I think everybody go out and buy discs at $35 a pop. That's not the solution either. That's not going to convince them. That's not going to sway the tide.
No, not at all. And this idea that streaming is not as bad as I thought. Shut up, dude. Just get off your high horse. All right. I am, as a reviewer who's been reviewed things for years and years, I've seen and yes, there are sometimes the streaming quality goes down. Sometimes it does, and it looks terrible, and that's irritating, no doubt about it. Sometimes it's Amazon Prime and the lip sync is awful. That's also terrible. I agree. But as far as video quality and audio quality is concerned, it is well beyond good enough, and not just good enough for most people. It is just bottom line good enough for almost everything. It looks better. Much of my streaming looks better than stuff that comes over the cable box.
Oh, for sure.
Live. Watching sports live is painful on cable. Watching the grass look plastic and the shimmery.
Quality of the audio and video is the least of my concerns, because that's only going to continue to go up. Yeah. That's not going to go down at this point. So that's like the least of my concerns.
But talking down to people like, you stream well, well, if I have to, I will. But
that's an interpretation. He might not have meant it that way.
I think he did. Or she. I'm going to gender
pretty sure that one was a he, that article.
To tell you what, dude, take a swing at somebody on an audio site, and it's probably a he.
Tough guess.
Gary is setting up a system in his condo. The room is about 13 by 20 by 10, and it's apparently quite reflective. He refers to it as live. So it's not lit. Maybe it's lit. He wants to use a pair of KEF LS50 wireless speakers as his front, left, and right for music listening. They'd be very convenient as they can stream Spotify and Tidal all on their own, or you can control them directly via the KEF's app. They also have a subwoofer output, so it seems likely they could be their own standalone 2.1 system, which is appealing to him. But also like they'll use them as part of his 5.2.2 home theater system.
Mm-hmm.
He was planning on getting a pair of REL T/7i, God, so easy to say, subwoofers. So he's trying to figure out how everything would be connected and how he would control everything without becoming overly complex.
Okay.
So how would he connect his dual subwoofers? The KEF LS50 wireless only have a single subwoofer output, and then he would also want the same dual subwoofers connected to his 5.2.2 system. How does he accomplish all that so that the KEF LS50 wireless can be used all on their own without having to turn on his AV receiver, and then also have the subs working properly when he does turn on the AV receiver for his 5.2.2 setup? Well, first of all, dude, I have no idea why you would want to specifically stream just to those speakers and not have it streamed through the receiver. What's the big deal? Turn on the receiver, put it in 2-channel mode, and you're done. I mean,
yeah,
I don't have any idea what's the benefit of this.
I'm mostly in agreement with that, but I mean, I can see how someone arrived at this vision.
I can
too.
They're
going to use their system.
Yeah, I can too, but I would definitely adjust your sites so that
just the receiver, not worry about it. Yeah, because I mean, you could get a receiver that does all those same streaming services, and instead of it being a KEF app, it'll be AV Receiver brand app.
Right.
That'll do all the same things.
Yeah.
And it will allow you to turn the receiver on over your network connection. That is entirely a thing you can do with those apps. So as far as convenience and having all the services, there is no real reason why you couldn't just do this all with so you can get the KEF LS50 passive speakers.
Yeah.
Instead of the self-powered ones.
Then you get room correction in there. You get crossovers and base management and all that other stuff taken care of.
Yeah, because they were real shy on details on what that subwoofer output actually does. I mean, almost always it has at a minimum an 80 hertz low pass filter on the sub output itself, but I don't know if it auto detects that you have plugged something into that sub output and applies an 80 hertz high pass filter onto the speakers themselves, or if it leaves the LS50 wireless speakers playing the way they play all the time, and then only puts a low pass filter on the sub output. They don't detail that anywhere, even in their manual. I couldn't find what exactly it does. Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. There's no technical reason why you shouldn't just get the passive version of the LS50 speakers, connect it to an AV receiver, and use the AV Receivers app, because you can do all the same stuff just as conveniently. But let's go as wrote. Let's say he goes, nope, I've considered that. I just don't want to do it. I am set in the way that I want to do this. Or maybe he already bought the wireless speakers, which is also entirely possible. So here's a couple of things. Side note number one, man, I do not want you to get those REL T7i subwoofers. What? Those, no, don't get those. There is nothing impressive about those at all.
He read someplace where they're good for music, I bet.
I am sure it's something along those lines, but those are unimpressive. And given the price point, maybe he wants the really small size, because these are really small. I think there's 8 inches. Aren't they 8 inches?
I don't have a clue. I would assume that we're 7 based on the number that's in there.
They are real small. But I mean, they don't even claim to play anything below 30 hertz. That's what they're claiming.
Well, so his room is 20 by something by something, 10. I remember 10, 20, 13. 13 by 20 by 10.
This is not a massive room, but it's not a teeny tiny room. Yeah, I mean, 8 inch with a 10-inch passive radiator on that thing. These are really unimpressive to me.
I think this page to open. Yeah.
I think he's might be in the UK, because that's where REL is most popular, and the stuff is listed in British pounds as far as the price goes. But you can get SVS over there. You could get SB1000s, which are more impressive than these and cost less, even in the UK. They'd be teeny tiny. We here at this podcast would probably recommend maybe even a little bit higher output, but 13 by 20 by 10 is not ridiculous.
I would go with the SB2000s.
Sure. But let's say he just wants that as teeny tiny as it can be and as low a price as it can be. SB1000s, I'm not going to turn my nose.
How can it be the lowest price? This is a $900 subwoofer.
I know. Well, it's an 850-pound subwoofer.
Well, on my screen it shows it in dollars.
Okay.
So it shows 900. It shows it $1,000 with it, but slash through that, and it's $899.
Okay.
Is what it shows.
I mean, you could get a pair of SB1000s.
For that.
You can get both of them for the price of one of these, and you were going to get two of them.
Yeah.
Or you could definitely get SB2000s. That'd still be less. It's $2,000 for a pair of these Rel's. You get SB2000s for $1,500.
Yeah. That's what I would do for subs. Yeah.
So that's side note there. But okay, so that's fine. Let's say he's done whatever he's going to do with subs. You can just use a Y splitter. Nothing wrong with that.
Right, from the CAFs, and then you
CAFs.
send you say to your receiver you have no sub, you send full range to your left and right speaker, and then the speakers will do the
They'll do the rest. They will pass on the signal, including the dedicated LFE channel, to the subwoofers that have been plugged into them with a Y splitter, and that's it. So that side, if you end up doing things that way, it's very simple. You just tell your AV receiver, no, I do not have a subwoofer, and it will automatically set your front left-right speakers to full range at that point, and that's it. And the subs remain connected to your LS50 wireless speakers at all time with a Y splitter. That's it.
So he's assuming if he gets an AV receiver with pre-outs, you can connect the LS50 wireless speakers to the front left and right pre-outs, while his center and surround speakers are connected, and overheads are connected with regular speaker wire binding posts. Could that cause any sort of sync or latency problems having one pair of speakers connected to pre-outs and others to speaker wire? No, is the answer.
Zero problem at all.
I don't see how there could be an issue.
Nope. So. Zero problem with that. So yeah, in fact, you could go with even one of like the Marantz slim lines, where the only pre-outs on there are front, left, right, and subwoofer. You wouldn't be using the subwoofer pre-out in this scenario, and you would only need the front, left, right pre-out. So you could even go with a Marantz slim line if you want something smaller, compact, sleek looking.
Right. Billy says, thanks for weighing in on where he should place his absorption panels in his very small theater room. We mentioned that we would have opted to install his surround speakers in the side walls rather than the back wall. He originally wanted to have both side surrounds and surround back in-wall speakers, but there's actually a large window on his right wall. He covered it with plywood and painted the plywood so that it blends in, but that prevents him from installing an in-wall speaker on that side. He still would like to have side surround speakers, and since all of his speakers are clips, he'd like to stick with that brand. Do we give any suggestions on how he might add side surrounds without them being in-walls? Stands?
Except that, he needs to be able to physically walk around this. So, now we're seeing the amount of space he has between the side of his right seat and the right wall, which is...
Am I seeing it?
Close to nil. There's should be 5 photos here, and you have to go.
Oh, okay. I gotta scroll. Yeah.
So he's temporarily just put his panels. He hasn't mounted them on the wall yet, but just put them basically where he's going to place them. So a couple over there on each side wall, and then one behind him because I can't really mount it on the little door he has on his back wall. So that's all good. Got the confirmation there. But yeah, over on at least on the right hand side, he's got very little room between.
You just have to mount them on the wall up high. Basically.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention Klipsch has several different speakers now, although they've pared their lineup in their current lineup on their website down to just one model that does this, but it's actually their Atmos modules, because their Atmos modules have the wedge shape that you would expect if you were sitting them on top of, a tower speaker or something. They'd have this angle aiming up at the ceiling, but Klipsch themselves is you can totally mount these on a wall, have them angled down, very much like, the surround speakers you'd see in a commercial movie theater, right? They always have that little angle downward, and they will work perfectly fine as surround speakers mounted on your wall. So
they're almost like the prime elevation speakers.
They're very much like the prime elevation. In fact, even a little bit shallower in depth than the prime elevations. So, sticking with Klipsch, so in the current lineup, they only have their reference Premier model, which is the RP500 SA now. Those do go for $500 a pair and include a 5 1/4 inch woofer. So those are more expensive and a little bit larger, but you can still get the old reference Premier ones that they have discontinued now. You can get those still. Those are the RP140 SAs. You can get those for $340. They use a smaller 4 inch woofer, but These are surrounds. That's fine. You cross them over at 100 hertz instead of 80. This is really no big deal. They do still sell the reference series. Those are the R41 SAs. Those similarly have a 4-inch woofer, but they go for $300, and they're not quite as good as the RP. So for $40 more at this point, since they were discontinued, I'd probably point you to the RP 140 SAs. You mount them on your wall. They're angled down at you so they can be high enough they're out of clearing your head, and yeah, that should do it.
All right, Matt. Matt's a new listener. He says he enjoys our podcast and is working on listening to back episodes. He's got his set up in an open concept living room. The right side is completely open. The back is open to the kitchen. The ceiling is slanted. And we've got some pictures here. So think A-frame. He's looking at the A part. So the TV is on the left side. The apex of the ceiling is to the right of the TV. So it goes way up high. Behind him is the theater. To the left is a window. To the right is open to here's the panorama.
A panorama, which is kind of like unwrapped the room, but
right.
Things are open, slanted ceiling above.
Looks like there's a stairway down on the right side.
That's right. Yeah, things are not symmetrically placed in here, as far as the entire room layout within the house. So yeah, open space, not a dedicated theater. That's the takeaway.
I need to put that picture in VR to understand it. All right. He started with Andrew Jones speakers and upgraded his front 3 to ELAC Debut 2.0 speakers. He's still using the Pioneer speakers as surrounds, and he's considering upgrading those to some matching ELAC Debut 2.0 models. He isn't happy with his current setup. Cheap speaker stands that he got from Amazon. His current cheap speaker stands he got from Amazon, so he'd like to upgrade those as well. But he's trying to figure out what to get. He thought it might be nice to go with on-wall ELAC speakers since they're thinner from front to back, and he could easily mount one on his left wall, but he would still need to use a speaker stand on the right side. So the ELAC all-in-wall speakers have an unusual design with ports at the bottom, so he's wondering if there's a stand that can accommodate them. What we'd recommend he get as surround speakers, and what stands should he get for them? Well, generally speaking, we suggest Santa stands. I have them.
Yes.
In fact, I'm using one right now to hold up my computer as I talk to you. So they are sturdy as heck. They got lots of options, and we love them. So I would go with Santa's first.
Yeah, and I'd want you to get something a little bit taller, because right now he has so no blame, because this is what Dolby is telling you to do these days, but he has them right at seated ear level.
Yeah.
And I would prefer to have my surround speakers a little bit elevated, because look, if anybody is sitting in the middle of that couch and then someone is sitting to the left or right of you on that couch, their head is like blocking that. So they got the speaker right in their head, and their head is blocking the sound from getting to the person in the middle. So I would want to elevate them a little bit, but Sanus has like 30, 31, 32, 36-inch stands. Yeah. So I'd look into something of those, and yeah, I'd point you to Sanus as well. So that's as far as the stands goes. Now, he's considering these ELAC on-wall speakers. They are very nice and narrow, under 4 inches in depth, but they have these downward firing ports. I mean, you could just turn them upside down.
That's what I was thinking, but I think you just go ahead and get bookshelf speakers.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
what I would do.
They've got their 5-inch bookshelf speaker, which actually conveniently in the ELAC Debut 2.0 series is front ported. So having its back very close to your left wall, no problem at all. It's a front ported speaker. It's about the same depth front to back as the Pioneer speakers you have right now. So if you're able to physically fit your current speakers, you can also fit the 5-inch bookshelf ELAC model, now with its front port instead of a rear port, which the Pioneer has, and then you put them on some Santa stands. So I'm leaning that way. Just get the bookshelf.
The Santa stands, too, generally speaking, can be weighted. So I mean, if you're really worried about them, their tipping options, then yeah, that's what I would. Just go ahead and weigh them down.
You put some plastic bag in there and fill it with kitty litter. And now they're nice and heavy.
He has a single SVS PB1000 sub at the moment. It's in the front left corner. And he knows full pressurization is really an option with this open layout, but he'd like to have even more even bass across all of his seats. And having it capable of being louder and more tactile would be nice too. He doesn't want to go overboard in price and physical size though, and his placement options are limited. So he's thinking he could maybe put a second PB1000 to the right of his couch, where he currently has an end table. Do we think this is a good idea, or would we recommend anything different, either with the subwoofer, model subwoofer, or where it's placed? Well, placement options are going to be an issue, and having that subwoofer right next to your couch will definitely get you a more tactile bass than you would have had. So I am okay with this.
Yeah, me too.
if you had said I don't have a subwoofer, I would have said cylinders, but you already have a subwoofer, so having another one I think is perfectly fine in this case.
Yeah, and again, these are the PB1000s with those fully variable phase knobs. So even though, you can't get them across the actual entire room space from each other.
Because that includes downstairs.
You're not co-locating them. You're not putting them both on the front wall. They're a little, separated in the room from each other, and you've got the fully variable phase knob to play with. So I'm in favor of that plan. I think that's a good plan.
The rest of his gear is a 75-inch Sony X900E, a Denon X2400H, pivoting on-wall Polk, speakers mounted on the ceiling as for Atmos, and an NVIDIA Shield. Do we have any other upgrades we would highly recommend, or sticking with the hundreds of dollars sort of price range as opposed to getting to thousands of dollars? What else can he do here to further improve his system? Well, generally speaking, we would say room treatments.
Yeah,
but you have nothing behind your head. So there's not a whole lot of places to put them.
I mean, it would kind of be like the left side is the most pressing since the right side is completely open. I mean, could you put some nice thick curtains over the window on the left? Because there isn't really a great place to put an acoustic panel over there anyway.
No, I might widen his front left and right speakers, though. They're sitting on the end of that table, and it's just basically the outside of the speaker is lined up with the outside of the bezel of the TV. I would like those speakers to be outside of the TV's.
Yeah, so if you maybe get some more stands, those stands you would want short enough that the tweeters would be right at ear level, but maybe get some speaker stands for your front speakers. Those on-ceiling speakers that you have, those should be pointed straight down. They're can't
see them.
Extra angled in so that
you can see
they're
like
aiming. Yeah. On the non-unwrapped picture, you can see there on either side of his light, which the light looks a little bit odd because it's at an angle as well.
Well, I can't do anything about that.
But yeah, no, I mean, those should just be pointing straight down, so that's free and easy.
Yeah.
I'm thinking just a nice thick curtain on that left window.
There's not a lot to do in this room, unfortunately.
Not a ton. Yeah, spread out your front, left, right speakers a bit more.
We love spending people's money, though, but it's not going to work in your case.
It looks, I can't quite tell, but it looks as though your front speakers might be pushed back a little bit on that TV stand. Definitely make sure that if they are pushed back a little bit, bring them forward so that they are, flush with the front of that TV stand or proud of it. Just a little bit forward. It looks like they're pushed back a little bit. Don't have your speakers pushed back.
It does look that way.
That is free.
It's also free. Everything we're suggesting is free, except for that curtain.
Well, he's going to get a new sub. That's spending money.
Well, he did that himself. We didn't have to do anything for that. Juan wrote us before when he was trying to decide which in-wall speakers to get for a new addition to his house. It's an open concept space with a 13 by 18 foot family room, being just a portion of the larger 28 by 32 foot addition. We recommend RBH, and that's what he purchased 3 of the VM616s for his front 3 speakers and a pair of VA615s, since his surrounds have to be in-ceiling speakers. He currently has an Anthem MRX500 receiver. It's great, and he's happy with it, but being a 2011 model, it doesn't do all the latest HDMI and HDR features. So he's considering an upgrade. His budget would top out at about $1,500, but spending less would be great, and he isn't sure he wants to spend an entire budget on Anthem's current entry-level receiver model. Yeah, I don't blame you. He knows we almost always recommend down in Moran, so so would he hear a big difference between Anthem room correction versus Odyssey Multi-Q XT32? Is the Anthem receiver so much better that would be worth the price difference? Nope.
Not in our opinion. No.
I'm sorry. I know that's not what you want to hear. I know there's probably a part of you that wants us to say, well, if you can afford the Anthem, you should definitely get the Anthem because it's going to make a huge difference. And I just don't believe it. I don't believe it.
I mean, I guess he could go NAD. There's that out there.
Yeah, with that
one comes with Dirac. It comes with 7 amplifiers built in, but can be expanded to 11 speakers, which not a bad deal, honestly, at its $1,300 or $1,400 price point.
Yeah.
So that would be the only other maybe, just to be something a little bit different and off the beaten path, and maybe you want to do Dirac instead. But honestly, we're big fans of Odyssey Multi-Q XT32. Other than Yamaha, hardly anybody else is doing something akin to dynamic EQ, which we think is really important. Having is that when you change the volume level, things remain audible. That's a really important feature. With the Odyssey Editor app, if you don't like the default target curve, you can manually change it. Nothing is stopping you anymore.
Right.
So I would definitely. I mean, I would.
All things being equal, I'll be honest with you. All things being equal, Dirac, the Anthem room correction system, YPOW, Odyssey, I think it's like 6 of one, half dozen of another. You're going to
Yeah.
get good results that might be measurably different from each other,
Mm-hmm.
but audibly, I don't think you're going to notice a huge difference. Now,
And all of them can be manually changed. That's the thing. I mean, when people are comparing them, they're comparing the default curves.
Yeah.
Once you start going in there and manually changing things, they all end up sounding the same if you want them to.
Yeah.
Nobody's got magic. They're all using fur filters. That's what it is.
So, I mean, like Rob said, the only real difference when someone's like, "Oh, well, I tried multi-Q, I tried this other one, and they're totally sounded different." Well,
Yeah.
the defaults might be different,
Yeah.
but the reality is they're all doing the same thing. They just might be doing it slightly differently. So, having good room correction is important.
Mm-hmm.
What the brand is matters very little to me. We tend to like Marantz and Denon because price point is such that their room correction comes in at a lower price than most other models that are out there.
While
most other
having
brands.
all of the up-to-date video features and having dynamic EQ that we
Believe
think
me,
is very important.
Onkyo comes out with a fantastic room correction and a low price point and a ton of features. You're going to be hearing the word Onkyo on this podcast over and over again. I've recommended go listen to the first episodes. Onkyo was top recommendation because at the time, and Yamaha, oh my God, that was before the Avantage came out. I trash talked them for at least a straight year because their receivers were garbage. They were. And then Avantage came out, and I was like, oh, Yamaha's back on the table.
And I wanted to say I'm getting much more bullish on Yamaha right now because their newest models that are just out now, they've got some cool features, including Bluetooth output to Bluetooth headphones, if you want it, which is a thing a lot of people have been like, why can't my receiver send out audio to my Bluetooth headphones? Well, the brand new Yamahas can. And you know already how much I like MusicCast, but they're doing the thing where their standard AV receiver, if you want some wireless surround speakers, add a couple of MusicCast wireless surround speakers. They're your surrounds now.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Cool.
Without it having to be a dedicated MusicCast.
Wait till they start showing up on Accessories for Less, and then you're going to start hearing those words.
Absolutely. So I'm quite bullish on that. They have something akin to dynamic EQ. They call theirs YPOW volume, but it's the same idea. You change the volume knob, it keeps everything audible with the curves of equal loudness. So I'm getting quite bullish on that. The only thing I wish is that they have, in their upper tier models, they only have one model that can do 11 speakers. The model below that tops out at 9 speakers and cannot be expanded. I'm like, so you don't have to get the flagship if you want to do 11 speakers. That's the last thing I hope they upgrade, but getting more bullish on Yamaha. If you want to get a Yamaha one, I'd have zero problem with that.
Right. The plan is for the seats to be about 15 feet from the front wall. With that distance, would he benefit from adding an external amp to his front 3 in-wall speakers? Probably not. I mean, are you really going to be watching at reference volume on the regular? Because if you're not, which I don't think you will be, I don't think anybody does. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think anybody really listens at. They're like, I got to be able to hit reference volume of my seats. I'm like,
people do care about it.
They care about it like they care about the number of watts. Yeah, the number of watts the receiver has. They're like, it's important because I want to be able to do it. It's like going to a shop before a car and looking at the speedometer and see how many numbers are on it. You're like, okay, but you're never going over 75, right? Or maybe 80. So what do you care if it could go up to 220? It doesn't matter.
He is at the point, and he does have these RBH. He got the M series front speakers, the VMs, which can handle a ton of power if you want them to. And he is 15 feet away. You're in the zone where I'm like, I'm not going to tell you flat no.
Right.
It's like maybe.
Will it?
Maybe.
Can't. Okay.
I bet he wants to. You know what? If we're saving you money and you're getting a Denon, a Marantz, or a Yamaha, then you
want to buy a 2-channel amp to go with that, knock yourself out.
Yeah, there you go.
Get yourself a 3-channel amp. How about that?
Yeah.
For 3 speakers.
Because I'm not going to tell you you're getting nothing at your seating distance with the speakers that you bought. It's probably don't need it, but it's not a nothing either. So
right. Yeah. I would say 99% of the time that amp will be making no difference. And then there's going to be a loud noise, and the amp's going to be like, see, aren't you glad you had me? And you're going to be like, oh, I've got to turn this down. It's too loud.
There you go.
Okay, you can only have one subwoofer in the setup. He is well aware that he isn't going to pressurize the whole space, and that one subwoofer cannot deliver uniform bass across all his seats, but it is what it is. So his goal is decent bass. Okay. He also knows that his family room is 13 feet wide and open on one side to the remaining 15 feet or so. or so. We would probably tell him to put a sub in on that open side so that's almost centered with the total space side width-wise. That's not what I'm going to tell you, but that is not an option. The sub's got to go in the front corner, and it can't be so huge that it sticks out like a sore thumb. He thought a cylinder might go over best, but he went with his wife to a Magnolia store to see some sub options. She didn't like the cylinder PC2000, but she's okay with the SB4000. He's a bit surprised, and he suspects she doesn't realize how big the SB4000 actually is. Since seeing in the store versus in your house can be quite deceiving. Going by measurements, he knows that SB3000 would actually fit better physically without sticking a ways out past their equipment furniture the way the SB4000 will. But she's okay with the SB4000. So does he just plow ahead and hide it a bit with a plant as his wife requested, or should he? The plant's coming off. Or should he try to earn extra brownie points by getting the smaller SB3000, which the measurements say will actually fit better?
He can't get in trouble because she said I'm okay.
No,
with this
you can still get in trouble. Shut up.
You can 28 by 32. That's a big room. That's a big room.
The male part of me says go with the 4,000 and then go with it, but the reality is you should get the 3,000. I think it's not going to audibly.
The 3,000 is no slouch.
Yeah, audibly, I don't think you're going to notice any real difference there.
And you're not going to be turning this thing up to 115 decibels regardless.
Yeah. So yeah,
are we saying go with this 3,000?
I'm saying it. You say whatever the heck you want. I'm saying I would go, if I would go with the 3,000. I would die a little inside.
I mean, hey, you're saving a bit of money too, which can go towards that amp.
Saving this guy money all over the place.
You get something that we know you want. I mean, why would he ask the question if he didn't want the amplifier? You're getting something you know you want. Your wife, you know, you're just going to be happy because she's going to go, oh, look at how perfectly that fits. You're going to get the brownie points. All right, I'm on board. 3,000.
All right, the current budget display is around $3,000 with a 15-foot distance from the seats to the front wall. He knows he'd like as big a screen as possible. The current 50-inch plasma definitely isn't cutting it, no doubt.
Yeah.
But the room has lots of ambient light and isn't well suited to a projection setup. So the biggest flat panel he can afford that will still look great and do all the latest 4K and HDR stuff is what he's hoping for. He knows we like OLED best, but the 77 inch is way too expensive, and going even larger would be nice. So what do we recommend?
Yeah.
Well, TCL is out of the question. They don't make anything that big.
They don't make anything that big?
I don't think so. The 65 is the biggest they make, right?
They got a 75-incher now.
Do they?
They do.
He wants something bigger than 77. So
yeah.
What do you got, Rob?
I'm going to be pointing it at Samsung. You know, You said you've got the ambient light all the time. So they've got the best anti-reflective screen. The HDR is real nice. Doesn't do Dolby Vision, but whatevs. We're going to live with that. So if you were buying it right now, I'd have to point you at the Q6 FN because they got it in an 82-inch size for like $2,500 or $2,600 right now. So I mean, you can't beat the size for price ratio on that guy. And if you want to go up to one of the full array local dimming models at the same 82-inch size, you're well over $3,000. So $2,600 on sale right now for the Q6 FN in the 82-inch size. And yeah, yes, it's edge lit, but you're going to have light all the time. So does it matter that it doesn't have the deepest blacks ever? No, not really. You're not going to notice it because you got lights on. So, you know, the panel itself has good contrast for an LCD, does HDR really well. You get the size, you get the price. The only thing I would say is since the brand new Samsungs that are just coming out for 2019 are being reviewed so favorably, at least in the early going. Now, for the 82-inch size, it's not going to be at that price right away. So if you want to get it right now, below $3,000, the Q6 FN is still a really darn good choice. But if you want to wait a little bit to see if, wait for the prices on the brand new ones to come down, the biggest feature is that the new ones seem to have improved the off-axis viewing. So if you're going to have a wide seating area, that might matter to you. It might be worth it.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it does. What is this thing? What is this thing that's on my screen?
I do not know.
I don't know either. I don't want it to go away. I'm afraid to click it.
I can't see what you are seeing.
Well, I'm afraid to click it. It has an X on it, but it's a blank box. Oh, it's making noise. Okay.
Tom broke his computer.
Dude, what is that?
I don't know. Can't even see it.
I'm afraid.
Virus.
I'm gonna,
Mac virus.
What is this thing? It won't go away.
All right. Know.
We'll do one more question, I think. Maybe.
That's it?
And we'll see.
Jeez. Got to do at least two more.
Siri asking me what I can be helped with. Go away, Siri.
Yeah, no kidding.
Go. Be gone.
Shoo. Nobody
Please
wants
stop.
you. You're practically Bixby.
It's just going to
definitely don't want Bixby.
Mark has an unfinished room that he will be turning into a dedicated home theater. He says he'll have lots of questions come, but in the meantime, he already bought a 100-inch screen, Innovations projection screen, and found on Craigslist for a great deal. And he's now found another deal via Facebook's marketplace on a projector. Before we say he's buying all this stuff too early, he's got a spare room that he's using as a temporary theater until his dedicated theater is built. So these items aren't just sitting in boxes; they're being used right now.
Okay. Siri's
Go
still
away.
there.
The projector is a JVC RS67. It went away. It's the top of the line back in 2014. It does have E-shift, and it can accept a 4K resolution signal, but it does not have HDCP 2.2, and it does not do HDR. It was under $1,000 though, and the seller included all the 3D accessories, a chief ceiling mount, and an extra lamp. The only thing that gave Mark any pause was that the seller said the projector had recently been serviced by a company called Mentronics to clean everything, replace the air filters, and install a new ballast. The seller used to run his own home automation installation company, so he had originally bought the projector at dealer cost. So big mistake, or did he make a good find and purchase? 4K resolution doesn't. I mean, the only thing that gives me, I don't worry about any of that lamp stuff because that all sounds pretty good. Or having it cleaned. First of all, I mean, that all sounds good. The HDCP 2.2 is the only thing that gives me any sort of pause. Right. But for under $1,000, it's very hard for me to look at that and say, "Oh, dude, you're totally."
No, I mean, it still had a great contrast. It's still a JVC projector. This is not going back so far that you're completely losing out. This is when they had the new polarizer wire grid that really upped things. So that was the beginning of that at the time. So yeah, really is the HDCP 2.2. I mean, if you're not watching Ultra HD Blu-rays, it's absolutely no concern. If you're just watching 1080p Blu-rays, you're done. If you do want to watch Ultra HD Blu-rays, first, you could just leave it as is and they'll just be downscaled to 1080p and the HDR will be converted to SDR. You might want to get a good player to do that, like the Panasonic. Right. That could be a concern. Or in fact, since this doesn't have like Rec 2020 color, the Sony X800 would be the perfect player to match with this projector if you just want to leave the HDCP 2.2 stuff alone. If you're like, I won't have the wide color, I won't have the HDR, but I've got to have me that 4K resolution even though it's E-shift, you could attach an HD Fury in your signal chain, and that'll strip off the HDCP stuff for you and let you send the 4K resolution signal. But you're never going to have the wide color. You're never going to have the HDR, so I kind of wouldn't worry about it too much. Yeah. But maybe you want to play Ultra HD Blu-rays for the Atmos audio, right? But you get a Sony X800, that's it. That'll do everything you need to do. So yeah, I think you made for $1,000. You're not going to get a projector that looks nicer than that in 1080p, so.
Especially for under $1,000 with all the stuff that it came with.
That's right,
the mount and everything else. So that's great.
That's good stuff.
George or Jorge or whatever.
I'm pretty sure it's Jorge. It's got to be Jorge, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Jorge would like to upgrade his sound system with dual subs, but his wife would like those subs to be invisible. Really? Mm-hmm. She's magic, is she? Does she cast spells?
I think that's code for, do you really need more stuff in here?
Yeah. They both agree they can't cost too much. She's considering the very slim monoprice SSW10, which is basically designed to go under a couch. But their couch is a pullout, so there's no room underneath it. If the SSW10 can stand up on its sides, he could put one just behind his couch and a second one on his front wall. But is it okay to have the SSW10 be vertical? And if so, which way should the driver be facing? Towards the wall or towards the room? Towards the room. Sure.
Well, not in this case, because this one is actually designed to even be wall mounted.
It is?
This is it can go under a couch. It's got its feet, but then it also includes brackets that go on what would be the underside to wall mount the thing. So it's meant to have that driver either firing into the floor or firing into the wall.
Oh, so it's a down firing driver. I thought it was an up firing driver.
No, it's a down firing driver, so it's meant to be firing into the floor.
I'm opening this. I've never seen this thing before. I'm going to see it.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, Dayton has an almost identical model that you can get through Parts Express for the same price. Theirs is modeled the sub 1000L for low profile. But the thing about that one is the Dayton one comes with little feet so that you can stand it vertically, say behind a couch, which is one of the images that they show, with the driver facing toward the wall. It also does come with optional wall mount brackets for the Dayton one. So, yeah, that'd be the way that you can definitely stand that one vertically. It comes with a stand specifically to let you do that, and the driver should be facing the wall. And you could do that up at the front of the room as well. No problem doing that.
It's a 100-watt amplifier, 10-inch sub.
10-inch driver.
I mean,
I think they claim down to 25 hertz. It's a 30 or 32 hertz sub.
Yeah.
So let's not go nuts here. But hey, it's still probably better than what your speakers can do. I actually don't mind this thing. I've recommended this before.
Yeah, it's a kind of a neat little solution for people.
It is,
but again, it's a black box too, so you have to deal with that.
Yep.
We can do a couple more maybe.
Cool.
Anthony's current setup is an open space, family room, dining room, open to the kitchen, stairway, hallway, everything. He's running a 7.1 configuration with all Clips reference series speakers and an SVS PP2000 sub. He's using a Denon X4000 receiver. Yeah, X4000.
Yeah, you used to have one of those.
I used to have one of those. No, I don't know what I have now.
You got a 4300 H.
Is it? Okay. He'd like to try Atmos, and he'd like a receiver that's ready for all the latest 4K and HDR video stuff. But they also have in mind to move in a couple years, and a dedicated theater room is a priority when that happens. So he will definitely have 7.2.4 or more at that point. So the question is whether to buy a receiver now that can do 7.2.4 or stick with the model that tops out 7 speakers. He's in Canada and was happy with his X4000, so he's looking at a B stock Denon from Gibby's. X4500H is $1,000, really not too bad considering the exchange rate, but it'd be the very top of his budget. Or the X3500H is $700. Mm-hmm. Are the extra 4 speaker channels really about the only difference between these two models? What do we think he should do? Save $300 and continue using 7 speakers, knowing he will upgrade again when they move, or spending the full $1,000 right now, experiment with Atmos in his current setup, and then hope things haven't changed too much in the next couple of years so that he can keep using the X4500?
I know my answer.
Yeah, I just don't think Atmos is all that great. So, I gotta be honest with you. If it were me, I would just be like, "What? Why is he? He wants to."
Also, he does have his surround and surround back speakers up high. So, if you were gonna do the whole Atmos thing, you probably would want to lower those, and I don't know if that's even an option. Looks wise, family wise, getting in the way of things wise. I don't know if lowering your surround and surround backs is even.
The way his theater works is it looks like above his head, it's like a vaulted ceiling.
That's right.
And then behind the couch, though, the ceiling is way lower, like a normal
ceiling. Yeah.
Ceiling. And that goes back into the dining room. But the speakers are all at that ceiling's height.
Yeah, like normal ceiling height, like 8 feet high.
So his Atmos speakers would be way, way, way up high, kind of firing into a wall.
Kind of. Or he could have top middles directly above his seat on that lower ceiling.
Lower ceiling.
They'd essentially be at the same height as his surround and surround backs, just firing straight down instead as top middles.
I'll be honest with you, dude. I think you should not worry about Atmos right now. I don't love that. First of all, you're not going to give it a fair shake. Not in this system, not with this setup. So if you're not going to give it a fair shake, you're going to be, having to worry about whether or not you really like it, or whether or not it's just that your room is non-conducive to Atmos. Because basically what you do is middles and top front heights.
Front heights and top middles. In your current setup, that'd be kind of the only thing to make sense, yeah.
But in a dedicated theater, you would have many more options. So, or theoretically, you would have many more options. And I know what you said, when we move, it's going to be a priority to have a theater room. Yeah, that's what you say. And that's what I said. And I lucked out in that I ended up with a dedicated theater room. I did.
Yeah.
But there were quite a few houses that we were ready to put, that we were talking about and considering, where the dedicated theater room was like sliding glass door on one side, open to the rest of the house on the other side, and tile. I was considering, because the kitchen was fantastic and it had all the stuff that we wanted and it was nearby. We put an offer on the house that was like that. And, they rejected it, or they came back with something where like, you guys are crazy. So, I would just wait. I would
Yeah,
hope.
I mean, even though we're not super worried about HDMI 2.1 and stuff, it's like, yeah, it is coming.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he mentioned in his email he's in the Vancouver area in Canada here, which means that whatever house you're looking at right now, that's $1.8 million is going to be 3.6 in 2 years.
Right.
So you maybe aren't moving in 2 years because that was my idea, but things kept going up and up and up and us remained out of reach. So yeah, you have to go back to the advice of you get what suits what you have now. That's what you get.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, even though you're like, it's only $300 more and I could play around with the 4500H, I'm like, I have to agree with Tom in here. Going into this, I was thinking, you know what? He's probably going to do it anyway, so why not just get the 4500? But Tom has made such a good point here. I have changed my tune, and I am in agreement with him. And I think you get what suits what you have now, will work, saves you a bit of money, does everything you need to do right today. And if the future comes, you worry about it then.
Yeah. And I know you want to spend some money.
Well, he is. He's spending $700.
I know you got an itch. So his kid's room is directly above the family room. It's his wonderful wife has let him put speakers all over, even hanging in their dining room. But she shoots him a glare if it gets too loud, particularly the bass when the baby's sleeping. So he's been using dynamic range compression and has had to keep the volume low. Is there anything he could do without it being a major project or a major eyesore to soundproof between the living room and his kid's room a little better? How do you feel about no as an answer? Because I mean,
it really is.
There really is
nothing.
There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
No.
So, I mean, the only thing I would say that you definitely could try is I don't know what he's done to decouple his subs.
Right. Yes.
Because that you can do.
That you could do. You could, put the SVS feet on there,
the isolation feet,
or get a Oralex, whatever that thing is called.
Subdued, which is a terrible deal these days, especially in Canada. Good God, what a raw deal.
Or just throw them on some blankets.
Something squishy. Well, first of all, you do if you haven't decoupled your subs in some way, you definitely fold up some blankets and try it because that's free. And
Odyssey has the
low frequency containment
LFC, which basically
just turns your bass down.
Turns your bass down.
So your bass down.
You could use that during these times. But
you turn on the dynamic EQ so that it turns the bass up when you turn the master volume down to keep the bass audible, and then you turn on the low frequency containment to turn the bass back down. Or you could just not turn dynamic EQ on, I suppose. Same end result. But
I would I'll be honest, I don't know what your kids like. I've got 3. In the history of me, I have never had a child wake up and say, "Daddy, the music's too or the movie's too loud."
Well, I mean, he was also talking like they
don't wake up for nothing. My
wife is still a baby or infant. They are dead to the world when they're asleep.
No, I mean, you have to worry about you hearing them. You do not have to worry about them hearing you. I mean, I know, hey, especially if you only have one child, and I am not in any way making any judgments about your wife or whatever, but people get nuts when they have a kid. When their first kid, they go crazy for like the first maybe couple of years sometimes. I had one lady, I went to her house and she's like, wash your hands before you touch the baby. I'm like, that's fine. Wash my hands. Come back and the dog walks up and I pet the dog. She goes, wash your hands again. I'm like, it's your dog. This dog is here in this house. Why do I have to wash my hands again? And she's like, well, you touch the dog, you're not going to touch the baby unless you washed your hands. And they had like all sorts of, antibacterial stuff all over the house. I'm like, oh, you're going to be a lot of fun for the next couple of months.
First time I was babysitting my nephew, which was my sister's first kid, I was just watching TV at what I thought was a perfectly reasonable volume. He was falling asleep on my shoulder, and then my sister comes and she's like, oh, it's too loud at that. I'm like, well, he's fast asleep at this point, but I turned it down. That's when he woke up. Yeah. It's like, as long as the noise was there, he was fast asleep.
I know. So, okay. That being said, if the child's getting woken up by the music or whatever, I mean, there's really not a lot you can do.
No, I mean, soundproofing, the only thing you could do, I mean, it wouldn't be an eyesore, but it would be a project, is you'd have to double up your existing drywall. You don't have to take down the drywall that's there, but you put some green glue on another layer of drywall and put that up there and prime it and paint it, all the stuff. That's a project.
That is a project.
It wouldn't look any uglier.
It's not going to stop the stuff from going up the stairs.
The stairs is not going to do a darn thing about the sound going up the stairs. So really the only reasonable thing I can point you to here is making sure that your subs are decoupled if they're not already. So
yeah. Put like a little noisemaker in your kid's room and whoosh, white noise thing. All right, so that's it for this week. Who else we got?
All right, so we have Chris H, and I threw Thomas T in there as well, since they're both related to ARC troubles, HDMI ARC. Who would have thought that might have troubles? But there it is. Tap has another question about his false wall. Lee B, Fred R, and I believe that is it. It is.
All right, there we go. All right, we want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Travis, Mark, Gary, and Juan for going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and leaving us a PayPal donation. So thank you, Travis, Mark, Gary, and Juan.
Indeed. One more time, Travis, Mark, Gary, and Juan. Thank you very much for those PayPal donations.
I want to thank our 84 patrons as well.
Yeah, that's patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you would like to sign up. Thanks very much to our 84 patrons over there.
James C is still holding his Philips Hue 2 bulb starter kit, and so far Mark is the only one who's expressed interest. So Travis, Gary, and Juan, if you three would like to be considered as part of that, please feel free. For the rest of you, if you get a donation in the next week, or by March 11th, we will consider you as well. We go up to $200, and this next week he will also be giving away an Echo Dot. So get on it, guys, and thank you, James.
Yes, thank you very much, James. It's nice of you to spur on some extra donations with that giveaway. I like those Philips Hue bulbs, so that's a good thing to get. An Echo Dot along with it would be nice too. Yeah, good stuff. If you're listening to this and you're like, March 11th, isn't that really? Yeah, it is. It's really soon. Do it now. Do it right now.
This was not our option. We were told what he wanted to do, and we said, okay, I guess that's fine.
Well, yeah.
So what are we gonna do?
In the mouth. So there you go.
All right. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.